So, if you could go back and give advice to yourself on your first day at the library, well, what would it be?
Relax. But one of my supervisors said I'd been there for 6 months, and it wasn't until I was like really off my probation period that I said anything besides hello and goodbye.
Welcome to the Rockford Public Library podcast, where we go behind the shelves and share the stories that shape the Rockford community. Get your ears ready. We're here with a local legend and my favorite, Jean Lythgoe. This year, she celebrates her 60-year anniversary at the Rockford Public Library. Jean is a purveyor of local history and has helped Rockford residents find more than just books. She's helped them find belonging. We'll hear her reflections on how libraries have evolved and what it means to devote a lifetime to one place. Whether you're a lifelong library lover or just someone who appreciates a good story, you're in for a treat. Let's begin our conversation with Jean Lythgoe. Welcome, Jean.
Good morning, Laura. Good to see you.
Good to be with you today. So, one question I had is what drew you to the library? And what was it like when you first started 60 years ago?
Well, I was already a library fan. Early on, after we'd moved to Rockford and I was attending grade school, someone from the library came out to talk about the library. And I came home and told my folks about it, and I was excited because before we came to Rockford, we'd been living out in the country in another state. And I said, Rockford has something called a public library, and you can check books out for free if you bring them back on time. Mm-hmm. And for me, that was the magic that is the library. And some of the magic is still there. And of course, when you're that young, you don't understand about taxes. But it's still, if you live in the city limits, you can get your library card, check your materials out, enjoy them, bring them back for the next guy to enjoy. And it's a wonderful concept of sharing.
So what year did you start?
1965.
Okay. Mid-century. Yeah. It was a different time. So do you remember your first day on the job? And what stands out about that memory?
Well, I don't remember all of it. I do remember my boss, Miss Helen Norris. When it was time for morning break, she bought me a 10-cent cup of coffee. The maintenance crew made the coffee in the morning at that point, and as I said, it was only 10 cents. So wow. She bought me my cup of coffee. When I started, my first supervisor was Polly Saunders. Her husband, Fred Saunders, worked in the post office and was, I believe, the first African-American to become a foreman of a team in Rockford. And his brother was Joseph Saunders, who published the Crusader newspaper.
Wow.
So that was pretty heady stuff. But my job in technical processes was with the other girls, as we were to type the catalog cards because we were going to be moving into the addition, which had just been finished, and there would have to be card catalogs on each floor. So we were typing the subject headings for those, and others in the department were typing the new catalog cards for the new materials as well. So basically, I typed 7 hours a day, and the 8th hour of my workday, I arranged the cards in alphabetical order after Polly Saunders had proofread them to make sure I had typed them correctly.
Wow.
So that's what I did first.
Were there more than one branch at the time, or?
There were 6 branches.
Oh, my goodness.
Let me see. On the west side, Rockton Center, West End, Montague. On the east side, Highland Branch, Southeast Branch, which eventually becomes Rock River. Mm-hmm. And we did have a bookmobile back then, too. Yes, it was.
What was
one
that
of the big
like?
old-fashioned bookmobiles, and it was doing pretty well, although in its later years the brakes got a little wonky, and sometimes the driver would come back with, "Well, I was going down the hill on Central Avenue."
Awesome. So, what are some of the biggest changes that you've seen in the library?
Well, technology, of course. Now our catalog is on the computer. People come in and use computers without thinking about it. But for most people, we still have a few people that they're getting there.
Yeah.
But it's very nice to see that people have become very comfortable with the computers, and we all know that it was a learning curve for everybody in Rockford. So that was kind of fun, and of course things like podcasts. Nothing like that. There was a librarian who I think sometimes went to the radio station to record book talks and things like that.
Okay.
So it's kind of like some of the things are similar. We're just using different technology.
Yeah, it's evolved in a different way. And let's see. What innovations or programs are you proudest of witnessing?
I think one of the things that impressed me the most, starting in 1996, when Illinois started the library systems.
Okay.
And we were, of course, at that point, part of the Northern Illinois library system. And there were probably at least 8 to 10 systems within the state, I believe. And we could borrow from within the system, and we could borrow further afield for interlibrary loan if we needed to. And it has grown over the years to the extent that the systems have combined.
Okay.
And so now it's Rails reading across Illinois libraries, and we can all still borrow from each other, and that's exciting too.
Yeah, that's so interesting. So if not, a library can't hold every book that's printed. So the Rails helps in, like if you've ever done an interlibrary loan. If people don't know what an interlibrary loan is, would you share?
It's a wonderful service, and yes, I use it a lot too. No library can have the entire collection of the world, but very often another library 200 miles away downstate might have the book you're looking for. You can fill out your interlibrary loan request. You can phone us, and we'll do it over the phone. You can show up in person, and we can start the paperwork, start the work on the computer, and then the request is sent out. And if there's a library that has the book and is willing to lend it, they'll send it up to Rockford. The length of the loan is dependent on that lending library. Well, it is their book, so you usually have 2 or 3 weeks to read it, and it's a great way to utilize our tax dollars wisely.
Yes. I remember being like, looking through our catalog and like, oh my goodness, I can't find the book that I want. And then I learned about the interlibrary loan, and I have so many that I've gotten from usually it's like those one-off like gardening books or.
Oh, yeah. Right, yes, or the third book in the series that's missing from our library.
Yes. So in your years, do you have a favorite story about helping a patron or something that comes to mind? Like in what ways?
Well, this one is a little bit weird. This is a local history question. Back in the 1800s, we've late 1800s, early 1900s. We've seen photographs, early 1900s, of the riverside of the Carnegie Library, and then down at the foot of Mulberry Street, just before it hits the river, there was what was a Civil War cannon. It was called a Parrott cannon, I believe after probably a general or something like that. Anyhow, one day somebody who's a local historian said to me, "So, what do you think ever happened to that Parrott cannon?" And I said, "I don't know. It probably disappeared during World War II when they were collecting metal for the government war, for the war effort." So some time went on, and we both learned over the years that at one point it had been moved up to the east side of Memorial Hall and was up there for a while. And then 10 years later, from your initial question, I was looking up something else, and right next to the column of the article I was actually looking at was something about the cannon being taken for the war effort.
Oh, okay.
So I called him up and said, "Hey, guess what? I finally found the answer." And I wasn't even looking for it. And that's what happens when you're doing research. You go, "Oh, thank goodness I remembered who wanted to know that."
Yeah.
Yeah.
So is that, as you know, your job has evolved.
Yes.
So you are now mostly in local history.
Right.
So what are the aspects of local history? Like, can you share what local history is and what you enjoy or love about it?
Well, it's going to be specific to Rockford and Winnebago County, with a little bit about Stevenson and Boone County, and both of those counties. For example, the Freeport Library in Stevenson County has a wonderful local history genealogy collection, so we don't have to have a lot of what they would have, but we have little bits. And the same with Boone County, because they've got the Boone County Museum and things like that.
Mm-hmm.
But so it's going to be specific to the county. I mean, generally speaking, the history goes back into the recorded history goes back into like the 1830s or so, when you have the Black Hawk War. You have Germanicus Kent, Lewis Lemon, and Thatcher Blake coming to Rockford in 1834, the county being formed in 1836. This little town halfway between Chicago and Galena, where all the Galena lead mines were, was calling itself Midway. And then they decided maybe that's not very dignified, and they named it Rockford instead because of the ford where you could cross the river. And then later on, they put the dam right where the ford was because they knew it was a solid bottom.
Okay.
And now it's exciting to learn that there's I guess they're going to try for a hydro project at the dam,
Mm-hmm.
and try and use it to electricity for some of the homes in the downtown area. So it'll be interesting to see if that comes to fruition.
Yeah.
So things come around again in Rockford a lot too.
Yeah, and I love going to you and being like, so what was here? I think some of the staff know to go to you and ask you, because the homes here are like they haven't been renovated, a lot of them, and you are able to find out who owned them before. And
yeah, we have things like we have Rockford City directories back to 1857. So sometimes it takes a little digging in the older ones because there's no house numbers, people. You have to backtrack and use other sources, including the digitized version of the newspaper, Newsbank, which you can use here in the library, or with your Rockford Public Library card, you can do it at home and have lots of fun falling down rabbit holes. So there's a lot of good information out there that can be found. We have a subscription for use in the library for Ancestry.com, so people can work on their genealogy as well. And we help people they'll hit a brick wall or they'll have a question, or they'll go, where was Peach Street? What is Peach Street? Mm-hmm. Well, I'll tell you what, Peach Street is now called West Jefferson Street.
Oh, so interesting.
So there's lots of streets that the names were changed, and you get to learn that too.
Yeah, I always think of you and the other local history staff as detectives.
We are.
Always sleuthing, always discovering, just putting puzzles together of Rockford's past. So I've always admired that about you guys.
Well, we get to have a lot of fun doing it. I mean, it's sometimes it's frustrating where you go, we should be able to find the answer to this. And we have maps, of course. So.
Yes. So with your perspective, what role do you think libraries should play in today's ever-evolving society?
Well, I think we still have a very important role to play. First of all, I've often thought a lot of what libraries are about is sharing information. And you're sharing information either by books, you're sharing knowledge as well. And that's the whole point of it. You share it. You check out your materials, you bring them back. The next person gets to read that. That's called sharing in my book.
Yeah.
And it's a wonderful way for people that you don't always know who's going to be the next person reading their book, but you might run into them later on and say, "Hey, I read this series at the library." They go, "Oh, I do too." And the next thing you know, you're talking about it. But I think you can use that information not only for personal enjoyment, but a new recipe that might just make everybody happy, especially ones with chocolate in them. Learning about what has to be done in the city, things that need fixing, and people being able to help out and share. And we all want to be nice if we could all get along. That'd be fun. That'd be another part of library sharing.
Yes. And I like the whole idea of sharing is community building.
It is.
I've always enjoyed our conversations about recipes and I'm like, oh, what book? For being able to see the books that are on hold, I'm like, dang, Jean's got all the good ones. So I've always been taking photos of the books that you have on hold because I'm like, okay, I gotta put in my.
Well, there's still a lot of wonderful writing being done out there these days.
Yes, and you're on top of it.
Well, sometimes maybe since I'm retiring, I might have a chance to be more on top of it. I don't know.
And there's this one thing I've heard you share about diversifying your genres of reading. Do you want to share that? I feel like you've said something to where it helps shape our mind, and I don't.
Well, I think it does. I know it. I feel that reading, particularly if you're reading history or about the culture in other countries, it's not the same as actually traveling and going to it, but it's a lot of fun because you get to learn it. Or as I like to say, you can go traveling in your armchair and there's no mosquitoes. So it understanding how and why people do things. And that's true also if you were, say, doing genealogy research, in that they say, when you know the period of time when your ancestors came over, read a history book of that time period. Find out what was going on in that country. Lots of times young men came to America because otherwise they would be drafted into their European army, whatever country it was. And some of those countries, their draft was 25 years.
Oh, wow.
And the chances of a soldier surviving that long weren't very good.
Yeah. So that's really interesting because, context is everything.
Right.
So it's you can't just say this time period versus our current time period are the same. It's this completely different mindset.
Right.
So, yeah. So what does it mean to you to have spent 60 years in one place?
I can't believe it happened. I will tell you a story that I've probably told far too often. When I started here, the personnel clerk came around and explained after I'd worked at the library for 8 years, I would be vested in the retirement fund. Well, when you're 18, that doesn't mean a lot of anything. But I did thank her politely, and my brain was going, how could anyone possibly work in the same place for 8 years?
So what's kept you here?
I think the people, the questions, it's been a good place to work, and people are respectful of each other, and that's important too.
Yeah, that's awesome. So if you could go back and give advice to yourself on your first day at the library, well, what would it be?
Relax. But one of my supervisors said I'd been there for 6 months, and it wasn't until I was like really off my probation period that I said anything besides hello and goodbye.
Uh-huh. So, were you nervous that day or just,
Oh, of course.
yeah.
Yeah.
And like, how old were you? Like, do you
18.
Okay. And so is it a time when a lot of women were out there working, or was it?
Oh, yes.
Okay.
Yeah, it was well accepted by then.
Okay.
My mother and my two aunts both worked before they were married.
Okay.
So I already knew that there was a generation ahead of me that was, you just did that.
Uh-huh.
You got out of school and you went to work.
Okay. Cool. So what has been a memorable, like, we love your recommendation, a book recommendation. What's been a memorable book that you've read this past year?
Well, there's been a lot, but I think one of the ones, well, there's one I'm currently rereading on a regular basis. It's called Through a Stranger's Eyes. It's by Will Bounsell. It's set in a post-apocalyptic world where the country he goes to, Asperia, is sort of the one utopian country in the rest of a dystopian world.
Mm-hmm.
So, and they use solar and wind power. They're vegan.
Okay.
They have, you don't just have rules set down on high, you have consensus. Everybody has to agree to the rules before they can actually put the rules into effect. So it's a fun book, and there's a lot of sharing in that book, so that's probably why I like it.
Oh, that's so, yeah. It's post-apocalyptic.
Yeah.
Things change.
Yep.
So what's been your favorite section of the library?
Oh, there's so many. I'm a big fan of mystery books, cookbooks, gardening, history, of course.
Mm-hmm.
You know, those are some of the major ones, but I read others too. So there's a lot of really good writing these days in the young adult section.
Yeah.
And I'm enjoying some of their books as well.
I love that you read so many genres and that you're in step with everything that's going on, and I feel really behind.
I think you're doing fine. Really, really.
So as we wrap up our time, is there anything else you'd like to share to the Rockford community?
Well, I think that libraries are all about sharing knowledge and information, and I think we need to avail ourselves of the wonderful services we have. A lot of our databases you can read at home, and whether you're working on getting yourself a job or you're wanting to know more about the makerspace or the digital fan that we have nowadays. That's all things to help us learn more so that we can help other people as well. And I'm hoping we can all share things and work together as a community and that things go well.
Yeah. Thanks, Jean. I really enjoyed having you. I'm glad I got this chance to ask you all these fun questions.
Well, thank you, Laura.
So thank you so much for sharing your time and your stories and your journey with us today. And it's rare to meet someone who's given so much of their life to one place, and even rarer to hear from someone who's done it with so much heart. So I appreciate you, and I just remember when I first started at the library and I heard about you, and you're so easy to talk to, and our conversation probably started mostly in the beginning with gardening.
Probably. Right.
So I'm going to really miss you. I'm so... Hold on.
It's okay. Well, I'm going to miss all the wonderful people that work here. and I'm going to miss some of the reference questions. But I'm going to get to be a library user. I mean, I've always been a library user, but I'll be able to come in and look at the new books and say, oh, I want to take that one.
Yeah. So just so glad to have this moment with you. And so wish you the best with your retirement.
Well, thank you very much. It's going to be different. That's all I know.
I'm going to miss visiting you as much as I do on a daily basis. So wishing you the best, and thank you all for listening.